In the days when the stars spoke to kings and the winds carried whispers from realms unseen, there rose a monarch whose name would echo through the corridors of time. Solomon, son of David, crowned not only in gold but in light. He was chosen before his first breath, cradled in prophecy and born under a sky of celestial fire. The angels watched as he took his first step. The earth itself hushed when he first opened his lips in prayer. But it was not his crown nor his armies that forged his legend. It was a gift, a sacred key forged in the fires of the heavens and sealed by the hand of the Eternal. With this key, Solomon unlocked the hidden doors of the universe, thresholds carved into the ether, leading to the salons of eternal wisdom, where time kneels and angels counsel the righteous. There, among radiant scrolls and eternal flames, Solomon learned to speak with the stars, to command the winds, and to bind those ancient spirits who once defied the throne of glory. But as light gathers, so too does shadow. Beneath the silver skies of Zion, a darkness stirred. From the abyss rose Asmodeus, the lord of ruin, crowned in fire and envy, his eyes fixed not on the kingdom, but on the soul of the king. For he sought to break the covenant between heaven and earth, and in doing so, unseat the one who had dared to command the unseen. This is not a tale of stone temples or golden thrones. It is the song of a king who walked between worlds, who wrestled with angels and demons, whose wisdom became a sword, and whose heart was both his power and his peril. You are about to cross a threshold. Beyond it lies Solomon and the covenant of the heavens. Chapter 1. The Whisper Beneath the Crown. The sun had not yet risen over Jerusalem, yet the palace of Solomon was already alive with golden light, not of fire nor flame, but of something older, something eternal. The young king stood alone in the inner court, barefoot upon the marble, his hands raised toward the dawnless sky. He had not slept. Visions stirred in the quiet of his soul like wind upon deep waters. The night before, he had heard a whisper, not in his ear, but in his spirit. A call, a name, his name, Solomon. It came like thunder veiled in silk, gentle yet unyielding, awakening something ancient within him. He had always been a seeker, hungry for truth not found in scrolls or sages. Yet this was different. This voice knew him, not as a king, but as something more, something chosen. That morning, as incense rose in quiet spirals around him, Solomon felt it again, a warmth behind his breastbone, a light swelling within. He fell to his knees. "O God of my father David," he whispered, "you have made me king, though I am but a child. Grant me, not riches or vengeance, but a discerning heart, that I may rule as you would rule." And heaven answered. From beyond the veil of sight, the stars shimmered and bent. A wind not of this world swirled around him, lifting his robes, whispering through stone and silence. Before him a figure formed, neither man nor flame, yet both. Wings of dawn, eyes like endless rivers. An angel. "Solomon," the being spoke, "your prayer has reached the heart of the Eternal. You have not asked for thrones nor blood, but for wisdom. So wisdom shall be yours, but not as the world knows it." In the angel's hand was a scroll, bound in gold and sealed with fire. Upon it was a sigil Solomon had never seen, yet somehow remembered. "This," said the angel, "is the codex of the covenant. Within it are the names of what has been hidden since the foundations of the earth, the paths of the seven lights, the language of the living flame, and the key to the salons of eternal wisdom." The angel placed the scroll upon Solomon's chest, and it vanished into him like breath into lungs. In that moment, time fractured. He was no longer in the palace. He stood in a realm beyond realms, a temple not built by hands, but by thought and glory. Columns of crystal, rivers of light, beings of grace and fire moved in silence, their voices like music never heard by mortal ears. He had entered the salons of eternal wisdom. There he was taught not only knowledge but command, the names of the winds, the language of the stars, the sigils of truth, and the seals of dominion. And he was warned. For every gate opened, said one of the luminous ones, a shadow watches. There are those who would tear down what is built in light. And then he saw him, a figure cloaked in smoke, with eyes like dying suns and a grin made of ruin. Asmodeus. The name struck his heart with a chill he could not explain. The creature did not speak, but Solomon felt his intent like a dagger in the dark. Envy, hunger, a desire not only to rule, but to consume. He awoke gasping on the marble floor of the palace, sweat like dew upon his brow. The scroll was gone, but the seal was now upon his soul. From that day forward, Solomon was no longer just a king. He was a guardian of secrets, a keeper of divine order, and the bearer of a covenant that could not be broken, only betrayed. Yet in the deepest corners of the unseen, Asmodeus waited, his eyes fixed on the heart of the wise. And so began the war not of armies, but of truths, a war that would echo across the heavens. Chapter 2. The Language of Fire. The days that followed Solomon's awakening passed like dreams wrapped in daylight. The king moved among his people with the same noble grace, but his eyes carried the weight of unseen worlds. At night, he returned to the inner chamber where the codex had touched his soul, and there, with closed eyes and open spirit, he heard the voices. They did not speak in human tongues. They spoke in a language of fire, a current of thought, symbol, and essence. It was not heard, but known, as though truth itself had chosen to clothe itself in sound and light for the sake of one man. And Solomon, with the wisdom granted to him, began to understand. Each night, the veil between realms thinned, and Solomon would walk in the salons once more. There, he was greeted by the angel Radiel, the keeper of divine tongues. Radiel shone with the hue of molten silver, his wings made of letters that danced and sang. "You have asked to rule with justice," Radiel said, "and justice begins where truth is known. But truth is not passive. It is a force of flame. To speak in a language of fire is to shape reality, to command the hidden, and to call even the rebellious to obedience." And then the angel opened a book, not made of paper, but of flame, and from it leapt sigils that hovered in the air, spinning slowly like stars in orbit. As Solomon reached toward them, the sigils burned into his memory, branding the divine syllables into the marrow of his being. Each one was a name. Each name was a key. Each key opened doors within creation itself. With time, Solomon learned to summon the winds to cleanse the land, to calm the hearts of his judges, and to reveal falsehood hidden beneath sweet tongues. But with every word spoken in this sacred language, the balance trembled, for the unseen realm was always listening. And something else listened too. One night, as Solomon studied the sigils in a trance, he felt a chill ripple through the chamber. The light dimmed. The flames no longer danced. They recoiled. A new presence entered the salon. Radiel's form flickered, his voice hushed. "Do not speak," the angel warned. "Do not answer." But it was too late. From the far end of the temple, a figure emerged, not radiant like the angel, but wrapped in shifting black and red, like smoke in a dying forge. Horns coiled like serpents from his brow, and his voice was honey laced with venom. "O Solomon, how wise you have become," said the shadow. "And yet, how naive to believe that such power would remain unchallenged." Solomon stood, calm, though his spirit trembled. "You are the one called Asmodeus." The being smiled. "I am desire given flesh, wisdom twisted into pride. I do not come to destroy your kingdom. I come to offer you one greater." And with a flick of his clawed hand, he revealed visions, cities of gold, worshippers in countless numbers, a throne that touched the stars. "All this," Asmodeus whispered, "if you speak my name in fire." But Solomon remembered the covenant. He remembered the silence of the eternal that burned deeper than any voice. And he refused. "No kingdom offered by shadow will outshine the kingdom born of light," Solomon declared. The salon shook. The flames returned, blinding. Radiel raised his hand, and the demon shrieked and vanished in a mist. But a mark remained, a fissure in the space, a scar on the threshold between realms. Radiel turned to Solomon with eyes full of sorrow and warning. You have made an enemy who cannot be slain by sword nor silenced by law. He will return, not with threats, but with seduction. He does not seek your throne. He seeks your will. From that moment, Solomon's wisdom deepened, not only in brilliance, but in burden. The language of fire had opened the heavens to him, but also the abyss. And in the echo of every sacred word, Solomon now heard the distant laugh of the one who waits. Chapter 3: The Salons of Eternal Wisdom. Solomon's feet no longer felt the cold stone of his palace when he closed his eyes to journey beyond the veil. The salons of eternal wisdom had become both sanctuary and battleground, a realm where time flowed like a river, both endless and still, where knowledge was alive and whispered its secrets to those worthy. These halls were not of mortal design. Vast pillars of crystal soared in disguise, painted with light. Between them, luminous beings drifted, angels of countless forms, each a keeper of forgotten truths. Their voices, soft as dawn, wove through the air like threads of music and light. Radiel, the keeper of divine tongues, was ever at Solomon's side, teaching him the mysteries of the universe one sacred lesson at a time. Under his guidance, Solomon learned to read the Codex not only with his eyes, but with his soul. The Codex revealed the fabric of creation, how stars sang, how the winds danced, how the fire of life burned in every corner of existence. But wisdom was no gift given lightly. Knowledge without balance is a flame that consumes itself. Radiel warned one twilight within the salons. To master the wisdom of the heavens, you must first master yourself. Solomon, humbled, nodded. He understood that the power of the Codex was also a test, a trial to purify the heart as much as to sharpen the mind. In those salons, Solomon met other beings, spirits of light who once walked the earth, sages who had transcended flesh and now served the eternal. They spoke in riddles and in truths, challenging Solomon to see beyond the surface of things. But amidst the radiance, a shadow lingered. Whispers warned Solomon of Asmodeus's growing influence, a force of chaos bent on unraveling the threads of order. It was said that Asmodeus was no mere demon, but a fallen guardian, once charged with protecting the secrets of creation, until pride and hunger turned him into a predator of souls. One day, while walking through a corridor lined with mirrors that reflected infinite possibilities, Solomon encountered a vision. Himself, seated upon a throne shattered and darkened, his crown twisted by shadows. "Fear not the visions, but the paths you choose," the angels cautioned. Solomon felt the weight of destiny heavier than ever. He was caught between two realms, one of light and order, the other of shadow and rebellion. Every choice echoed beyond the salons, shaping not only his reign but the fate of the unseen worlds. Yet, even as doubt flickered in his heart, a deeper truth anchored him. His wisdom was more than knowledge. It was a covenant, a sacred bond forged by faith, courage, and the eternal light that even darkness could not extinguish. And so, Solomon stood tall, not merely a king, but a guardian of the unseen, a beacon amid the eternal struggle between light and shadow. Chapter 4: The Trial of Shadows. The days in Jerusalem passed with the usual clamor of court and council, yet Solomon's mind wandered off into the realms beyond mortal sight. The salons of eternal wisdom beckoned him nightly, but with each visit, the presence of darkness grew stronger. The shadow of Asmodeus was no longer distant. It was stalking the edges of the light. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Solomon found himself once more within the crystalline halls of the salons. The air was thick with tension, and even the luminous beings moved with caution. Radiel approached him, his face etched with grave concern. "The trial of shadows awaits you, Solomon," Radiel said. "It is a test unlike any you have faced, a confrontation not of strength, but of spirit." Solomon's heart beat steady, though he felt the cold touch of fear. "I am ready," he declared. Radiel led him to a great chamber, its walls alive with shifting shadows that seemed to breathe. In the center stood a great throne carved from obsidian, and upon it sat a figure cloaked in darkness. Asmodeus himself, eyes glowing like embers. "You come, wise king, to meet your fate." The demon's voice was like silk and steel. "Do you believe your light can banish me?" Solomon stepped forward, the sacred sigils of the codex glowing faintly upon his skin. "I believe that light is not the absence of shadow, but its master." Asmodeus smiled, and the chamber erupted in shadows, twisting and writhing like living flames. Solomon closed his eyes, chanting silently in the language of fire. Each syllable was a beacon, each name a sword. Visions flooded his mind, temptations, fears, doubts, but he held firm. The demon's power sought to unravel his soul, to turn wisdom into despair. But Solomon's covenant was stronger. With a final word, a burst of radiant flame engulfed the chamber, scattering shadows into nothingness. Asmodeus's form flickered and vanished, but his voice lingered, a dark promise. "This is only the beginning, King of men." Breathing heavily, Solomon felt the weight of the trial settle upon him. He had passed, but the battle was far from over. Radiel placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have proven worthy, but know this: Asmodeus will return in many guises, seeking to corrupt what you protect." Solomon nodded, the flame of determination burning bright. His path was clear: to guard the wisdom of the heavens, to defend the sacred covenant, and to rule not only a kingdom of men, but the realms of light and shadow. The war for the soul of creation had begun. Chapter 5: The Guardians of the Threshold. The sun rose over Jerusalem, casting golden light over the stone walls of Solomon's palace. But beyond the mortal realm, the salons of eternal wisdom stirred with a different glow. The victory in the trial of shadows was but a ripple in an endless tide, and Solomon knew the path ahead would demand more than courage. It would require allies. Radiel appeared before him, his silver wings shimmering like the dawn. "You must summon the guardians of the threshold," he said solemnly. "They're ancient spirits sworn to defend the gates between worlds. Only with their aid can you hope to keep Asmodeus's influence at bay." Solomon's brow furrowed. "How do I find them?" "In the deepest sanctuaries of the salons, where light and shadow touch, they wait. But they will not come at a king's summons lightly. They test the heart first." Without hesitation, Solomon stepped once more beyond the veil. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer, as he approached the threshold, a vast portal framed by entwined silver and obsidian, pulsing with cosmic energy. There, the first guardian appeared, a towering figure clad in armor of starlight, his eyes like twin comets. "I am Zuriel, sentinel of balance," he intoned. "Prove your heart is true." Solomon bowed his head and spoke. "My heart is pledged to justice and the eternal covenant. I seek not power for myself, but peace for all creation." Zuriel studied him in silence, then nodded. "You have begun well." One by one, more guardians emerged. A fierce warrior with flaming swords, a serene being whose touch healed wounds unseen, and a watcher cloaked in veils of light and shadow. Each posed a challenge: riddles of truth, trials of spirit, and tests of resolve. Solomon met each with humility and strength, drawing not on his wisdom alone, but on his faith in the covenant that bound him to the heavens. At last, the guardians stood united before him. "We shall stand with you, King Solomon," they declared in a chorus like thunder and rain. "Together, we guard the threshold against the encroaching dark." Solomon felt a surge of hope, tempered by the knowledge of the war yet to come. The kingdom of men and the realms beyond were intertwined now, and his reign was no longer just a matter of politics and stone, but a cosmic dance of light and shadow. As he returned to his palace, Solomon knew that every decision, every word, every breath was part of a greater story, one written in fire, shadow, and eternal light. Chapter 6: The Whisper of Betrayal. The days that followed the summoning of the guardians passed in a tense rhythm. Solomon's palace was alive with the murmur of ministers and scribes, but his mind remained tethered to the unseen realms where light and shadow waged silent wars. Among the radiant beings of the salons, a subtle unease began to stir. Radiel's once calm demeanor held traces of worry, and the guardians, vigilant and silent, watched for threats beyond the threshold. Yet the greatest danger was not always from without. In the quiet corners of the mortal court, whispers curled like smoke, voices sowing doubt and fear. Some spoke of the king's strange absences, his secret communion with angels and demons alike. Others feared that the power Solomon wielded could corrupt even the purest heart. But none felt the sting of betrayal sharper than Solomon himself when a trusted advisor, a man named Azariel, approached him under the cloak of night. "Majesty," Azariel said, voice low, "I have seen shadows moving where they should not be. I fear that not all who serve you are loyal to the covenant." Solomon's gaze sharpened. "Speak plainly, Azariel." Azariel's eyes flickered with fear and resolve. "There are those who would trade the kingdom's soul for power, those who would open the gates to Asmodeus and his darkness." The weight of the revelation settled heavily upon Solomon's shoulders. The enemy was not only a distant demon, but a poison within his own halls. He summoned the guardians, and together they devised a watch, eyes and ears in both the mortal and celestial realms. The palace became a fortress of unseen wards and guarded secrets. One night, under a moon veiled in clouds, Solomon's suspicions were confirmed. Azariel, his trusted advisor, was found whispering forbidden words in the tongue of shadows, attempting to summon a fragment of Asmodeus's dark power. The confrontation was swift but sorrowful. Azariel, once a loyal servant, was cast out, bound by chains forged in the light of the Codex. Solomon's heart ached, not for the loss of power, but for the fragile trust shattered. Radiel spoke softly. "Betrayal tests the soul more than any demon's fire. Yet it is also the forge in which true wisdom is tempered." The king nodded, steeling himself against the storm to come. His covenant was more than knowledge. It was a crucible of faith, courage, and sacrifice. As shadows gathered at the edges of his realm, Solomon understood that the greatest battle was not only against external darkness, but the hidden shadows within. Chapter 7. The Light of the Covenant. The palace of Solomon was bathed in dawn's gentle glow, but the king's heart was a battlefield of light and shadow. The betrayal of Azariel had shaken his faith, yet it also kindled a deeper resolve within him. The covenant he bore was not merely a gift. It was a sacred trust to protect the fragile balance between worlds. Radiel stood by his side, a steady beacon amid uncertainty. "The light of the covenant is not a flame to be hidden," he said. "It must shine forth, a beacon for all who seek truth and justice." Solomon nodded, feeling the weight of his destiny settle firmly upon him. He summoned the elders of Jerusalem, the scholars, priests, and warriors who shaped the realm's future. "Let this day mark the dawn of a new era," Solomon proclaimed. "An era where wisdom and faith guide our every step. We shall build not only a kingdom of stone, but a sanctuary of light, where all may come to learn, to grow, and to stand against the darkness." Plans were laid for the temple of eternal light, a place not only of worship, but of knowledge, a beacon that would reach beyond the mortal realm into the salons of eternal wisdom. As the days turned to weeks, Solomon's bond with the celestial realm deepened. The Codex glowed brighter with each passing day, its sacred words unlocking new powers and insights. Yet, even as hope blossomed, the shadow of Asmodeus loomed. The demon's whispers grew more insistent, weaving doubts into the hearts of men and angels alike. One night, Solomon stood alone upon the palace roof, gazing at the stars that shimmered like diamonds against the velvet sky. He raised his hands, invoking the sacred names inscribed in the Codex. A radiant light enveloped him, a warm and powerful embrace that spoke of ancient promises and unyielding strength. In that moment, Solomon understood. The covenant was not a shield to hide behind, but a flame to wield, a light that could pierce even the deepest darkness. With renewed courage, he vowed to guard the throne and the sacred wisdom entrusted to him, no matter the cost. The battle for the soul of creation had entered a new chapter, one written in light, hope, and unbreakable faith. Chapter 8. The Veil Between Worlds. The night air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant hum of Jerusalem's slumbering streets. But beyond the mortal realm, the veil between worlds grew thin, thinner than it had been in centuries. Solomon could feel its tremors as if the very fabric of existence wavered. In the salons of eternal wisdom, Radiel gathered the guardians. "The barrier weakens," he warned. "Asmodeus seeks to tear it open, to unleash chaos upon both realms." Solomon, standing resolute, replied, "Then we must strengthen the veil, bind it with light and truth." The guardians led him to the ancient altar at the threshold, a place where cosmic energies converged. There, Solomon began the rite of binding, a sacred ritual written in the Codex's deepest pages. His voice rose in chants older than time, words vibrating with power. As the ritual unfolded, shadows clawed at the edges, desperate to breach the fragile boundary. Images flashed before Solomon's eyes, visions of destruction, of kingdoms crumbled to ash, of light snuffed out. But amid the turmoil, a figure stepped forward from the shadows, not Asmodeus, but a mysterious woman clad in shimmering robes, her eyes alight with a fierce and knowing glow. "I am Seraphina," she said softly, "a guardian of the ancient balance. I come to aid you, King Solomon." Suspicion warred with hope within Solomon's heart. "Why should I trust you?" Seraphina smiled, a radiant warmth that quelled the king's doubts. "Because I too have felt the shadow's creeping hand. Because the fate of all realms depends on unity, not division. Together, they strengthen the veil. Light braided with shadow in a delicate dance, weaving a barrier resilient and radiant." When the ritual ended, Solomon felt the weight of countless worlds resting lightly on his shoulders. No longer a solitary king, but a guardian of the fragile balance between light and darkness. Yet even as the veil held, Solomon knew the battle was far from over. The shadows would return, cunning and relentless. But now he was not alone. With Seraphina at his side and the guardians united, the throne of wisdom stood stronger than ever, an eternal beacon against the coming storm. Chapter 9. Shadows in the Sanctuary. The Temple of Eternal Light was nearing completion, its towering spires reflecting the golden rays of the setting sun. Jerusalem buzzed with anticipation, but beneath the surface, a darker current flowed, whispers of unrest, of secrets buried deep within stone and soul. Solomon walked the temple grounds, feeling the pulse of power in every carved pillar, every etched symbol. The Codex lay safely within the sanctuary, its pages glowing faintly with the promise of untold wisdom. Yet, even in this sanctuary of light, shadows stirred. Seraphina approached, her gaze piercing the gathering dusk. "The shadows are restless," she warned. "Asmodeus's influence seeps through cracks in the veil, corrupting the hearts of those who should be our allies." Solomon's expression hardened. "Then we must seek out the corrupted and purify the sanctuary from within." That night, Solomon convened the guardians. They moved silently through hidden passages, their celestial eyes sharp for signs of darkness. In the depths beneath the temple, they found traces of forbidden rites, symbols scorched into the stone, echoes of voices that should have been silent. A battle unfolded, not just of swords and light, but of wills. Shadows twisted and clawed, seeking to overwhelm the defenders. But Solomon, wielding the radiant power of the Codex, stood firm, his voice a beacon of unyielding faith. Asmodeus's hand was near, but not yet upon them. In the heart of the sanctuary, Solomon confronted a figure cloaked in shadow, once a trusted priest, now a vessel for darkness. "Why do you betray the covenant?" Solomon demanded. The figure snarled, "Power is the only truth. Your light blinds, but the shadows see all." With a mighty invocation, Solomon banished the darkness, the corrupted soul shattering like glass. Yet the victory was bittersweet, a reminder that the fight was not only external but within every heart. As dawn broke, Solomon renewed his vow to guard the covenant, to protect the light, and to never waver in the face of encroaching shadow. The throne of wisdom was not a prize won, but a burden carried, a sacred trust in a world where light and darkness danced forever. Chapter 10. The Trial of the Heart. The sun had barely risen when Solomon found himself alone in the inner sanctum of the Temple of Eternal Light. The glow of the codex cast dancing shadows on the ancient walls, but in Solomon's heart, a tempest brewed. The covenant demanded more than wisdom and power. It demanded purity, sacrifice, and an unwavering spirit. Yet, even the wisest of kings could be tested by doubt and temptation. A sudden chill swept through the chamber, and before Solomon appeared a figure clad in darkness, a manifestation of Asmodeus's will. His eyes burned with malice, and his voice was like the hiss of a serpent. "Solomon, bearer of light, will you deny the hunger that lurks within? Power is not merely a gift. It is a temptation, a fire that consumes all who wield it." Solomon's grip tightened around the codex. "My heart is my own. It is the covenant that guides me." The shadow smiled cruelly. "Then prove it. Face the trial of the heart. Succeed, and your reign will be unchallenged. Fail, and the darkness will claim your soul." The chamber dissolved into mist, and Solomon was transported to a realm beyond time, a realm of illusions and fears. Visions of betrayal, loss, and despair assailed him, each more vivid than the last. He saw his people suffering, his temple in ruins, and worst of all, his own spirit broken and lost. Yet, amidst the chaos, a voice called out, a whisper of truth, love, and hope. It was Radiel, his steadfast guide. "Remember the covenant, Solomon. It is your light in the darkness." Drawing upon the strength of the codex and his own resolve, Solomon faced each vision, dispelling fear with faith, doubt with wisdom. The trial tested not only his power, but his very soul. When a mist cleared, Solomon stood firm, unbroken. The shadow faded, defeated for now. "You have passed, but the darkness waits always." Breathing deeply, Solomon understood that the covenant was not a shield, but a journey, one that required courage, humility, and the enduring light of a steadfast heart. Chapter 11. The Whispering Shadows. The city of Jerusalem hummed with the daily bustle, but beneath its vibrant surface, unseen forces wove intricate threads of intrigue and deceit. The shadows whispered secrets, and Solomon knew the time of quiet was ending. Seraphina stood at his side as they surveyed the city from the palace balcony. "The darkness festers in places where light does not reach," she said softly. "We must bring the covenant's light into every corner." Solomon nodded, his gaze steady. "Then we shall send emissaries, warriors of faith and wisdom, to cleanse the hidden corners and strengthen the bonds of the realm." That very night, a mysterious visitor arrived, a cloaked figure bearing a message written in ancient script. The words spoke of a rising cult devoted to Asmodeus, spreading corruption like a silent plague. The king summoned the guardians. "We face not only open foes, but enemies who lurk in shadows, poisoning the hearts of our people. Plans are made to root out the cult's influence." Solomon, guided by the codex, led a covert mission deep into the labyrinthine alleys beneath the city. They encountered twisted rituals, symbols of darkness etched into stone, and spirits tormented by malevolent forces. The battle was fierce, not only of strength, but of will, as Solomon invoked sacred names and ancient prayers, breaking the curse that bound the souls. In the heart of the darkness, Solomon faced a shadow-cloaked priestess, her eyes glowing with unholy fire. "Your light cannot reach me," she hissed. But Solomon raised the codex, its pages ablaze with holy fire. The covenant's light pierces all shadows. With a final invocation, the darkness shattered, and the priestess fell, her spirit freed. Returning to the palace, Solomon felt the weight of victory tempered by the knowledge that the shadows would rise again. Yet with every victory, the light grew stronger, and the covenant's promise shone brighter across the realms. Chapter 12. The Echoes of Eternity. The Temple of Eternal Light stood proudly at the heart of Jerusalem, its walls humming with the power of the covenant. But Solomon knew that true strength was not found in stone alone. It was etched into the very echoes of eternity. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of violet and gold, Solomon entered the sacred chamber where the codex rested. The ancient book pulsed gently, as if alive with breath and memory. Suddenly, a voice filled the room, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, resonating through the halls of time. "King Solomon," it whispered, "the covenant is more than a bond with the divine. It is a key to the past and the future, a bridge between what was and what will be." Solomon closed his eyes and reached out with his spirit, opening himself to the vast currents of time and wisdom. Visions flooded his mind. Ancient worlds lost beneath the sands of forgotten ages, celestial beings weaving the tapestry of creation, and a future yet unwritten, fragile as dawn's first light. Among the visions, a figure emerged, a radiant being clothed in light, bearing the symbol of the covenant. "You are the keeper of the sacred flame," the figure said. "But beware, for the balance is delicate. Every choice ripples through eternity." As the vision faded, Solomon felt a profound clarity. The covenant was not only his burden, but his blessing, a sacred trust to guide humanity through the storms to come. He vowed to honor this legacy, to walk the path of wisdom and light, and to face whatever darkness threatened the fragile harmony of all worlds. The echoes of eternity called to him, and Solomon answered, his heart steadfast and his spirit unyielding. Chapter 13. The Covenant's Guardian. Jerusalem's dawn broke with a gentle light that kissed the rooftops. Yet beneath the calm, the unseen battle between light and shadow raged fiercely. Solomon stood at the threshold of the sacred chamber, the codex clasped tightly in his hands, its ancient wisdom whispering secrets meant only for the worthy. Seraphina's presence beside him was a steady flame amid uncertainty. "The covenant's power draws many, both allies and foes alike," she said quietly. "We must remain vigilant." Solomon nodded, knowing well the price of complacency. The covenant was more than a gift. It was a mantle of responsibility that weighed on his soul like the heaviest crown. As the sun rose higher, a messenger arrived bearing troubling news. A faction of corrupted zealots, twisted by Asmodeus's dark influence, had infiltrated the city's inner sanctum, threatening to desecrate the temple itself. Without hesitation, Solomon summoned the guardians. Together, they descended into the labyrinthine passages beneath the temple, where shadows writhed and secrets festered. The air was thick with the scent of ancient incense and malevolent magic. Symbols of darkness marked the walls, and the whispers of lost souls echoed through the stone corridors. A fierce battle erupted. Blades clashed with shadows. Light tore through darkness, and Solomon's voice rang out with the power of sacred incantations. In the heart of the chaos, Solomon faced the zealot leader, a man once pure but now consumed by darkness. "Your light blinds you, king," the zealot spat, "but the covenant will fall." Solomon's gaze was unyielding. The covenant endures because it is rooted in truth and justice. With a final invocation, Solomon unleashed a wave of radiant energy that shattered the darkness, freeing the zealot's soul from its torment. As calm returned, Solomon realized the covenant's true strength was not in power alone, but in mercy and redemption. The throne of wisdom was not merely a seat of authority. It was a beacon of hope in a world forever caught between light and shadow. Chapter 14. The Heart of the Covenant. The Temple of Eternal Light stood majestic and serene, its golden spires reaching toward the heavens as if to touch the very source of divine wisdom. Within its sacred halls, Solomon felt the weight of the covenant heavier than ever before, not as a burden, but as a profound responsibility that tested the depths of his soul. As twilight settled over Jerusalem, the codex pulsed gently in his hands, a beacon of ancient knowledge and celestial power. The whispers of angelic guardians filled the chamber, a chorus of voices echoing truths beyond mortal comprehension. Solomon's footsteps echoed through the vast corridors, drawing him toward a hidden chamber known only to the most faithful custodians of the covenant. There, in the heart of the temple, awaited a crystal of unparalleled beauty and power, glowing with a living light that seemed to breathe. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in ethereal radiance, a being neither fully of light nor darkness, but a perfect embodiment of balance. Its eyes, deep pools of wisdom, met Solomon's gaze. King Solomon, the figure spoke with a voice like the wind through ancient trees. To truly guard the covenant, you must first understand its heart. Wisdom alone will not suffice. The covenant demands unity of purpose, compassion, and unyielding courage. The crystal's light grew brighter, casting intricate patterns on the walls like celestial runes. This crystal holds the essence of the covenant, a fusion of wisdom, mercy, and strength. To wield its power, one must embrace sacrifice and humility. Solomon reached out, his fingers grazing the crystal's smooth surface. A surge of warmth coursed through him, awakening memories and visions of trials past and challenges yet to come. He saw faces of his people, hopeful, suffering, faithful, and realized that true leadership was more than dominion. It was a sacred trust to serve and protect. The figure's voice softened. The covenant is not a weapon against your enemies, but a light to guide the lost, a balm to heal the broken, and a shield for the vulnerable. Solomon's heart swelled with resolve. He vowed to be not merely a ruler crowned by wisdom, but a guardian of peace, a shepherd of souls. Even when darkness threatened to engulf the world, he would hold fast to the covenant's true power, the power of love, mercy, and unwavering faith. As the first rays of dawn pierced the temple windows, the crystal's light bathed Solomon in a radiant glow. Outside, the city awoke, bathed in the promise of a new day, a testament to the enduring strength of the covenant and the steadfast heart of its keeper. Chapter 15. The Last Vigil. The twilight hour wrapped Jerusalem in a veil of quiet anticipation. The city, alive with prayers and whispered hopes, seemed to hold its breath as Solomon prepared for the final vigil, a sacred rite that would seal his bond with the covenant forever. Within the grand hall of the temple, the air shimmered with the presence of angels and spirits, their luminous forms watching silently. The codex rested before Solomon, its pages open to the final chapter, a revelation written in a language older than time. Tonight, the covenant's true test awaits, Solomon murmured, his voice steady but heavy with resolve. Seraphina stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames of the sacred torches. The chamber darkened as a celestial light descended, enveloping the king and his companions. Visions of past battles, victories, and sacrifices cascaded through Solomon's mind. The faces of those who had stood with him and those who had fallen. From the depths of the shadows, a familiar presence stirred. Asmodeus, the cunning adversary, manifested in a swirl of smoke and flame, his eyes burning with envy and malice. So, the king dares to claim the covenant's power alone, Asmodeus hissed. But no crown can hold against the storm I bring. Solomon's gaze was unwavering. The covenant is not mine to wield for pride or dominion. It belongs to all who seek light amidst darkness. The battle that followed was not just of might, but of will and spirit. Solomon chanted sacred verses, invoking the names of the angels who guarded the covenant. Light clashed with shadow, holy fire met infernal smoke, and the very air trembled with the force of their confrontation. Asmodeus lunged, his dark claws aiming for the codex. But Solomon's hand, guided by divine purpose, held firm. With a final invocation, a brilliant radiance exploded from the codex, engulfing the chamber and banishing the darkness. When the light faded, Asmodeus was gone, defeated but not destroyed. Solomon stood, weary but unbroken, the codex glowing softly in his hands. He knew the covenant's battle was eternal, a vigilant flame to be nurtured against all darkness. But tonight, the kingdom was safe, its guardian steadfast and true. As dawn broke over Jerusalem, Solomon whispered a prayer of gratitude, his heart filled with hope and the promise of a new era, one where wisdom and light would reign forever. Epilogue, a legacy of light. The story of Solomon and the covenant of the heavens is a timeless journey, a testament to the power of wisdom, courage, and faith. As the echoes of this ancient tale fade, may its light continue to inspire you in your own path. Thank you for watching and sharing this journey with us. Your presence honors the legacy of the wise and the eternal quest for truth. Until our next story, may your heart remain steadfast and your spirit ever bright.